Recording started. Welcome to week 5 of Mobile App Portfolio 1. And we're just going to jump into a quick recap from last week. So the link is there if you wanted to watch the video if you didn't get a chance to be in class. We covered a bit about Adobe XD. Hopefully you guys are pretty comfortable with Adobe by now and you've had a chance to play around. There's so many awesome resources for learning more about Adobe. So I just touched kind of on the surface of it. But for what we're doing, you can get in depth a lot more than what I covered. So we talked about the Scrum PowerPoint. So hopefully you guys all remember and understand the different aspects of Scrum. Does anybody want to give a shot at some of the different positions or uh, yeah, I guess positions that you can take in Scrum? What are the different elements of Scrum? Some of the types of planning or meetings that we perform? How is it different than Waterfall? Someone can take a shot at any of those questions. Feel free.
Yeah, well, I guess the agile versus the waterfall. So agile was kind of more like taking a chunk of an app that you want to work on, or just breaking into smaller parts and getting that working and functioning before moving on to the next segment. So kind of breaking it into smaller parts.
That was for the agile, you said?
For agile, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
totally. Yeah, you got it. So that image is right here too. If that helps you kind of remember, waterfall is like, this really long process and you don't really get to see a finished product till the very end. Um, Seeing here like represented by like the little target with an arrow in it, I guess. Whereas with our iterative approach with agile, you build and you have a little bit of a prototype and then you keep building and you have a bigger prototype and it's cumulative and it builds on. And yeah, exactly, Tom, you've got it. So some of the different positions we can maybe have. So we have a scrum master, we have a development team, we have a client, aka me. We have users that'll just obviously be who you're developing it for, or maybe if it's like for the poker tracking, then it's those poker players. Um, so all of that good stuff. We covered all of that in the Scrum PowerPoint. I introduced you guys to your teams on Microsoft Teams. So hopefully, I've seen you guys are using them by now. So that is great. I can tell when you guys are using it. You see how it's bolded here. Um, when it's bolded, it means there's like new stuff that's happened in there, and then I can go in and check out the conversation that's going on. So there's a Trello link here by Daksh, and he's asking if anyone's got queries regarding the cards, and then let him know. So it's awesome. I saw a couple of the other teams. You guys posted your Trello boards and stuff here. So yeah, awesome. And then there was 2 PowerPoints for you guys to cover on your own time there if you want to read a bit more about GitHub and then domain name registration, which we will cover eventually here, probably just before we get into reading week. But for today, let's get into these 2 PowerPoints and hunting in high performance teams. Any questions before I move on to clear up anything from last week or
Just
so?
a really brief thing about the design assignment.
Yes,
What format would you like it submitted in when we submit it on Blackboard?
that is a great question because I believe it probably says something different than what I actually want. So here it's asking for a URL, right? Um, and here it's saying you're going to use your website. Because we haven't actually made our WordPress website yet, then you can just give it to me in a PDF form, or if you want to actually attach it to um, GitHub, then I'll accept that as well, and that's easy for me too because it's all in one place. So it's really up to you and your team how you want to do it. If you guys did it differently, and like some of your team members did PDF and some of your team members did, well, I guess you guys could all do PDF, and then one person can just kind of uh, put everything together and mesh it all together on the GitHub or into a PDF, and then it's just a group submission, right? You'll also notice, does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, that answers it perfectly. Thank you.
Cool. You'll also notice if you come down to users and groups here, I created groups. I don't know if it gives you guys notifications for this or not, but I created groups and I literally based them off of the groups that we have in our assignment section here. So for the 3 groups, the wireframes, the blue team, and the yellow team, did you guys get a notification when I did this? And then I enrolled each of the people in their respective groups? Did you guys get a notification? I'm curious about that. Because if you didn't, I guess it doesn't really have an effect on you yet. But then, no, you didn't get anything? Okay. But when I assign stuff to you, I can now assign it um, to the group, and then the group can make a submission, and then I give a mark to the group, and it applies to all of you. So I guess it just changes it on my end, but it also makes it easier for you guys when you're submitting. You can see if the team has submitted or the group has submitted something. But I think you can also, it's up to you guys how you use this. I think we'll stick with more with Microsoft Teams, but if you wanted to, I believe you can come in and you can make a group discussion board and only your group can see it. You can make a journal, tasks, a blog, a file exchange, all of that. And then you can see the assignments that are assigned to you right here. So they'll show up there. So there is just that extra little module. If you go down on the left-hand side, it's under users and groups, I think, under the course minute. Well, maybe you guys don't see it there. Maybe it's under tools. I wonder where you can find it.
Yeah, I found it under tools on my end.
Okay, yeah, okay, there it is, groups there. So it'll be under tools. So you guys have, it's a little bit different in the way that it's ordered for you, but it's under tools, and then you can just click the groups button there, and then it'll bring you to the same page that I was just showing you. Cool. All right, and then yes, so Tom, thanks for bringing up assignment 2. Just to clarify, that is due, that's coming up October 13th. So that's the Wednesday. So just make sure you guys are working on that, or you get it done before the weekend. If people are going to be gone for the long weekend, just make sure you guys are keeping that in mind and that due date is, in the back of your head so you know that it's coming. Cool. All right, let's get into these PowerPoints here. So the first one I want to talk about is high-performing teams. I'm going to skip through a couple of these. There's just a slide here that kind of talks about why this is a team project. And there's a couple of reasons, obviously, but it's a super valued skill in the real world. In today's job market, being able to work in a team, being able to resolve conflicts, being able to communicate and adapt and work with different types of people is a really big skill. And being able to say you have experience doing that, or just having the experience to know what to expect, is a really valuable skill. So just in case any of you guys were hoping to do an individual project or you're maybe not super jazzed about the fact that it's a group project, a couple more reasons. You actually can apply and synthesize knowledge in a deeper way or a more complex way. So you guys in some ways can be learning from each other, and you'll learn more from maybe what a group member would have said than something that I would say, because you're able to bounce ideas off of each other and you're able to actually collaborate in ways that maybe I wouldn't actually be able to get that. So that's a cool way. And then number 3, it develops the ability to problem solve collaboratively, to communicate, and to deal with diversity and conflict. So I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but yeah. So I wanted you guys just quickly, you could type in chat or you can, yes, assignment 2 is the group assignment. Yeah. But it's a group assignment, but you guys are supposed to all be contributing to it. So it's not just one person doing it. So I forget how many screens I said you had to do, but each person's going to be contributing an even amount of work for that. Okay. Have you ever been part of an excellent team? That's the question I want to ask you guys. If so, if you've had that opportunity, think about the best team you've ever been a part of and write down or just send in chat, what are 2 attributes of that team that you got to be a part of? What made it such an amazing or excellent team? It could be a sports team. It could be something you did in class. It could be something you did for work. It could be some volunteer experience that you did. What made your team the best team you've ever been a part of? Tom says communication and supporting each other. I think communication is huge. I totally agree with you there, for sure. Communication, being able to be on the same page and manage those expectations and who's doing what, and then supporting each other is great. Sometimes people can get down or discouraged because they're not maybe feeling like they're doing their part or whatever, and being able to support and come in and encourage one another and maybe fill a gap where someone isn't performing allows that team to just succeed. Dax said communications. Yep, for sure. Agreed. So you and Tom are on the same page with that. And a team leader with teaching skills. Interesting. That's a cool one. So I actually haven't really heard that one before, but I do agree with you. Having someone that can lead or facilitate is definitely important. And it takes a certain amount of time before you can get to a point where you don't need a leader, right? So to actually get your team to that stage where you're autonomous and you all know what to expect of one another, you usually need someone who's in charge and delegating in between everybody. But yeah, that's for sure. That's a good one. Cool. Okay. If anyone else thinks of some, put them in chat and we can discuss them. On the contrary, have you ever been in a terrible team? Have you ever been in a very poor performing team? Again, could be a sports team, could be a school group. What were two? Yes, you have. That's hilarious. Okay, well, that you know what? Then you can answer this. What are 2 to 3 attributes that made that a terrible team? There's a comic there for your enjoyment. What makes a poor performing team? Obviously, we can just take the opposites of what Tom and Daksh said, which would be lack of communication or lack of support for one another. Um, Lack of support for one another could also look like, you're just at each other's necks because you're just, you know, constantly berating or judging each other for their work. Or lack of a team leader, lack of decision making power. Yeah, exactly. That's totally it. Yep, Doc's got it. Nice. Cool. So, getting into it. So here's some of the most common dysfunctions of a team. This was made by someone called Patrick Lencioni, and at the very bottom of it, the foundation is absence of trust. So, kind of keep these in your minds over the next 8 months, 7 months that we're going to be developing together, and you guys are in your teams. You're going to have to learn how to trust each other. Oh, here's another one by Harshit. Lack of importance for work. Yeah. So you're not taking it seriously, or you're kind of being lazy and you're not treating it like the work's important. Yeah. Um, and I think that might actually be in here somewhere. Inattention to results kind of relates to that at the very top of the pyramid. So the other ones we have fear of conflict. So you're so afraid that there's going to be conflict, you don't actually speak up or challenge anything or offer any of your ideas. So then, you might miss out on a great opportunity. Lack of commitment. So, these sprints, you're supposed to commit to doing some tasks. And if you don't commit to them, or a couple of the people of the group don't commit to them, then you're not going to finish your actual tasks. Avoidance of accountability. So again, not being able to actually keep people in your group accountable. If they're just being lazy and they're not doing stuff, then that can also really hurt your group. So, trusting each other and being able to speak your mind and have those, adult conversations where it's like, hey, we just want to get this done and we want to feel like we're a group here. And then the other person actually being able to be an adult about it and hear them out and be like, you know what, I hear you and you're totally right. I'm going to do better. Then, you can have a really good performing team. You can have a mature conversation about it and you can move on. So that's kind of what this is talking about here. Another cool diagram, and maybe this will help you remember. And right now, I would say we're probably in the forming stage, is Tuckman's stages of group development. So they all rhyme, which kind of helps us remember them. Forming, storming, norming, and performing. And you can kind of guess to what they are, but basically, forming is when the group is just beginning and you guys have just begun and you guys probably just met each other and it's, you're online, so it's even different that way. And as you work in a group, you're learning how you guys work together in a group and you're developing those relationships and that trust. Storming is what happens when there is conflict or there is, you guys are butting heads a little bit and it can be a bit uncomfortable and, things aren't getting done. Maybe you guys aren't doing as great at your work. Norming would be once you're actually, you're kind of, you could go from forming here straight into norming. You might not hit the storming phase, but then you could pop into the storming phase after that. You can go in between any of these at any point other than the forming one, really. And, norming is kind of like You're getting your groove on, you're starting to develop, you're starting to trust each other. And then the performing here is when everybody is at their peak, everybody just knows what to expect of each other, and they don't need to ask those questions anymore. You don't really need to have that leader because everyone is autonomous on their own. They're able to make these decisions and they know what's expected of them, and they're just performing, and everyone is jiving as a team. So you can see that in sports teams when they get into like the playoffs for like the Stanley Cup, in hockey teams when there's a team that's just jiving and they just know where to pass because they know the player is going to be there. It's kind of like that. You know that this person's going to finish a task so that you can start working on whatever your task is, and you don't even have to really have a leader delegate tasks anymore. So you can just read about each of them in more detail here. The forming phase is where there's really strong reliance on a leader. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, Daksh. And the leader has to be very directive and delegate. The roles and responsibilities are still unclear. You don't really know who's doing what, who's developing, who's designing, who's the leader. There's high motivation. Everyone's super excited, but you're still figuring out what your team looks like. And then you might notice you're going to be busy with routines like a sprint planning meeting or a daily stand up, but you're not actually going to get a ton done because you're still figuring out how to do the routine and how to focus on, documentation, but you're not necessarily actually so good at the routines. You're still learning them that you're not getting as much done. And then you're still learning about each other, right? There's going to be a lot of interpersonal interaction. You might still have some of those conversations where you're learning to actually learn about the other person. The storming phase is when, people get more comfortable expressing their opinions, and then there's more confrontation. You might have cliques if there's a bigger group. We only have like 4 or 5 people in our group, so there might not be cliques, but in a group of 10, you might have like some of these developers form a group and other developers form a clique. There's more clarity on the goals, but your team still needs to get rid of some of those issues with interpersonal conflicts. You're still building trust. The reliance on the leader is still there. Um, some teams leave this stage quickly. Other teams never leave. So hopefully that's not. Hopefully that doesn't happen in this case. Hopefully you guys all leave this stage quickly. But don't worry if you guys do find yourselves in this stage. It's completely normal. All right. So don't get discouraged. So this stage is this is good. This is a good sign. If you guys are in the norming stage, you're on track to be a high performing team. You guys have consensus with a common goal. You know what you're committing to for each goal. Everyone knows their responsibility and role in the team. It's clearly defined, and everyone knows what's expected of them. And the leader is more facilitating than actually directing. So they're kind of taking a step back and making sure that the communication's there, but they're not telling people what to do. Um, and then the performing teams section, you guys are all acting as a single unit. Everyone's making decisions within the team, and there's little supervision by a leader. At this point, everyone knows what's expected, right? Teams know what they're doing and why they're doing it. There's high motivation. And the disagreements that you might have are dealt with in a really constructive way, and you're able to move past them. And you guys have each other's backs. So hopefully we get to this point. It can take years for teams to get to this point. So it's very possible we don't get to this point in these 8 months. But if, you have a great groove on, then you might actually feel like you're doing really well. And that's very much like performing. So that's cool. Here's a little diagram to see, team B, they're a high performing team because they all have their eyes set on one goal. Whereas team A, they're all over the place. They're looking at all these different goals. So just a question here. What makes a team a high performing team? Well, everyone knows what their task is. Everybody's able to confront one another. So, there's no shame in sharing your ideas or sharing your opinions. Sometimes your idea might be that $1 million idea that makes your app different than everybody else's, and people should be able to hear you out. And, just because there's a group leader doesn't mean, that it's a dictatorship and that they can just shut you down. You're always striving for self-improvement, and you take responsibility. So that's everything you can do as an individual. And then you're wanting to share your knowledge. So if you find a really great resource or you make an awesome discovery, you want to share that. Peer accountability, and then agreements, fundamental basis for human relations. Cool. So one thing I want to do with you guys, and we could do it today because today's going to be actually our day one of our sprint planning, or our sprint one of development. So I'm actually really excited about today. I've been excited to do this class with you guys. So I'm going to break us off into our breakout rooms in our teams, and Tom's team and Akshay's team. I know I still need to meet with you guys. Tom's team, I'm really sorry. I completely missed your meeting there that you guys set up. So we'll do that today. But we're all going to do breakout rooms together today, anyways. Even after those meetings, you guys are going to make a team contract. Okay. So there's a couple things that we put in our team contracts, and there's multiple reasons why these team contracts are useful. Okay. Number one, you use it for dealing with potential conflicts in the future. Okay. So any responsibilities or whose role is what or logistics, you can kind of pull up this contract that everybody agreed to at the beginning of the year and say like, hey, you signed this piece of paper. You said that you were going to be, contributing or coming to a meeting once a week, or you said you'd respond to your emails or whatever. There's all these things that you can incorporate, and you can make your contract as detailed as you want or as vague as you want, as long as the team agrees on it and feels like they can sign that piece of paper and uphold it for the next 8 months. Then I am happy. But I am going to get you guys to submit your contracts to me, with whatever everyone's digital signature kind of thing, or signs your name. But um, everyone will submit it to me, and you know what? I might as well make it an individual submission just so I know that each person has kind of like read through their team's contract and actually agrees to it. But some things that you can put on there uh, that you are agreeing to as a team is maybe meeting times and location. As a team, you write this on the contract. As a team, we agree that we will meet once a week, twice a week for stand up meetings to discuss our progress, our blocks, and communicate where we're at in the current sprint. We'll meet up 3 times a week. We'll meet up 4 times. You can put as much or as little as you want as a team, as long as you guys agree and each person commits to that. We agree that we're going to meet on Monday afternoons at 2 p.m. in room K232, and you're going to book that room out for the rest of the year on Mondays at 2 p.m. We agree that we're going to have a meeting room, or we agree that we're going to do an online Zoom meeting. You can agree to meet in person, or like once a month, we're going to meet at Starbucks. I don't know, whatever you guys want. I know it's a little bit difficult to meet in person right now with the way everything is, but actually, fun fact, I got an email today from the associate dean who said next semester they're hoping to put more stuff in person. So we might be in person next semester. I'm not sure. We'll see. But that would definitely make meeting up a lot easier. If someone's sick for an extended period of time or goes on vacation or whatever, how do you guys handle that as a team? You have to come up with an agreement for that. Communication channels. What are you guys going to use? We agree that we're going to do all of our main communications on Microsoft Teams. We agree we're going to use Facebook and WhatsApp, whatever. Conflict resolution. If there is a conflict, we're going to have a vote to resolve the conflict. Or you could just decide if there's a conflict, the current Scrum leader will resolve the conflict. If there's a conflict, we're going to go to Ben, and Ben's going to help resolve the conflict, whatever you guys want. If there's a conflict, we're going to have a friendly match of fisticuffs and handle handle it that way. Whatever you want to put on your team contract, okay? And then work location's probably going to be remote, but if you wanted to, you could say that you wanted to work from the school or a certain room or something like that. Okay, but we'll work on the team contracts today. You can come up with those and then submit them to me. Sometime during the first sprint. There will be no due date on it, but just sometime before the first sprint's over, just so I know everybody's on the same page with your team. Cool. So that's high functioning teams. Does anyone have any questions about that? No questions? Great. All right, I'll pause this recording.